Welcome, everyone, to the Indie Reds podcast. I'm your host, Joe Dilling. With me are Jim Dimitri and Bryan Smith. I know we discussed last episode that this was going to be the episode with a special guest, but as I was throwing together the outline, we realized it was going to be super long, so we decided to break it up a little bit. So we're going to be looking at releasing 2 this week. Haven't decided yet if we're going to let this one marinate for a couple days before we release the second one or not, but just subscribe and then you won't miss it. So tonight we're going to talk about Manchester City. We're going to talk about the fallout of that, and we're going to look ahead a little bit. But before we really get started, I wanted to welcome any new listeners. We've seen some new followers on Twitter, as well as I was able to pass out some business cards at my business meetings last week. And a couple guys in the UK who had they were non-plastic Chelsea fans. Yes, they do exist. I think he said that there might be about 20,000 of them. And then a friend from, a coworker from Denver. So we pass the word along to them too. So if this is your first time listening, welcome. If you're a seasoned veteran of our wonderful podcast, welcome as well, because we love having every single one of you guys. All right, so let's just go ahead and jump in. Manchester City. So this match has been on the tip of everyone's tongue for weeks. Lots of discussion all week prior. City, some of the topics were Pep calls Mane a diver. Ederson gets injured in Italy. Will he be fit for the match? David Silva is injured. Is he going to be fit in time? Is Pep just playing mind games? Pep's mind games. Are they just going to park the bus again like they did last time at Anfield? Is it still unsafe for their bus, or are the unruly fans going to throw bottles again? And also, on the Liverpool side, how will Mane respond to Pep calling him a diver? A lot of people talking that maybe Ox should get a start over Hendo. And then, how will the front three play? Because they've been a little bit of lackluster of late. So, guys, what were you really wondering most about this match, aside from how it was all going to play out, like scoreline and stuff? I'll start with you, Jim. Pre-match.
I think it was the park the bus again point, because that's kind of Pep's MO when he comes to Anfield. I mean, it might not be the same as the old Mourinho throw 11 men behind the ball kind of technique, but it was successful when they came to Anfield last season. And I thought that they'd do it again. And as we'll talk about, he did not, and it didn't work out. So, well, it kind of worked out.
It worked out for us.
And I'll chime in on. Yeah, it worked out for us. But yeah, I think the first 10 minutes of the match, they had a lot of the ball and they looked pretty dangerous.
Yeah.
And so it looked like maybe this gamble was going to pay off, but as I said, it ultimately did not pay off.
As we all know by now.
As we all know by now. And, something I think we were able to do that, of course, we haven't done with regularity in the past several matches is convert on high level or high percentage chances. So, that was promising. But that was the thing that was on my mind was light blue bus or not, and there was no light blue bus.
Bryan,
except the one in the Anfield garage. That's okay.
Bryan, I was anxious AF. How are you feeling pre-match?
Did we lose him? Hello?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry about that. I thought we would win. And as I predicted on the pod last week, turns out I was right. In hindsight, it's kind of easy to gloat about that. But I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to the Pep stuff and the Mane diving stuff. And, Ederson getting injured probably was the biggest piece of information that came out prior to the match. And they came out very late. But that was fine with me because, he's clearly their best keeper, especially for the style that they play. And, like Jim said, they came out and went for it. But I wasn't too worried about the Pep stuff. And I too, was calling for Ox to start in front of Hendo. I thought that was a real possibility, if not, maybe likely that he was going to do that. But I'm glad that we didn't, with the way that City came out and played. If they had sat back and really defended a lot, which is certainly not anywhere near their style, then I would prefer Ox in there because he would have had space to operate in and time on the ball. And it turns out another midfielder got the ball centrally with a chance to rip one from long range, which we'll get to.
Which we will get to, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I just felt like we would win and felt good going into the match. It was a fun day. It was a fun morning. It just anticipation and the night before. And yeah, I mean, it's just the match of the season so far, and one of the biggest this early in the Premier League campaign in a long, long, long time.
So as everyone's kind of hinted at, last season Pep brought City and they parked the bus. Everyone applauded him, said he was tactical genius. He said something along the lines of, you can't go to Anfield and go at them or you'll get run off the park like we did in Champions League. So, it looks like he had a change of heart. Man, the match starts and like Jim mentioned, City are attacking hard, and maybe this was because they saw that we kind of have tended to start slow lately, or Pep had noticed our attack has been poor, and he wasn't really afraid of them, so he's going to go at it. So, what are you guys thinking about this? Do you think that maybe he had a change of heart? He maybe saw something tactically, or he was like, "Look, we have to try and win this game because we're already." Gosh, we're already 6 points behind Liverpool. We can't afford to drop any further. Brian, I'll come to you first.
I think you're right. I think they were attacked a little bit more, especially early, because they're 6 points behind, and they have a tough schedule coming up, which we've mentioned a couple times, and we've played by far the much tougher schedule to them. So far, I think they really wanted to win this game. I thought that they believed an early goal would help them do that. Not that they could score early and then hold on for 80 minutes for a 1-0 win. Hell, they couldn't even not complain about a 5th-minute handball and try to hold on for 85 minutes either. So it kind of shows that even if they got that early goal, I still don't think they were going to bunker down at that point. They were going for it. It was good to see. It was a good advertisement advertisement if we're doing official Premier League, right? Good advertisement for this league and for the game and for these two teams, which are among the best 10 teams in Europe, probably the best 5 teams in Europe, no doubt about it. And, watching the match back, I really think Sterling made a mistake in the 3rd minute, screaming at the referee and picking up the ball and getting angry with, he's rolling around on the ground, or Trent's rolling around and wins the ball, and we get a goal kick out of it. And Sterling starts screaming at the referee. I think that woke our players up. Like, whoa, these guys are going for it. He's pissed already. Whether it was a good call or a bad call, and I think it might have been a bad call. Sterling should just jog back to the halfway line and play the goal kick. But he's fired up, and less than 3 minutes in and scream at the referee already. That kind of signaled their intentions to me. And I don't know that we, made huge changes to what we were going to do, but pretty indicative of what City was trying to do there, to be that intense that early. And it was good to see. I'm glad they came out and came after us.
So Jim, anything you want to talk about in the first few minutes up to the goal?
We're going to talk about the handball. So yeah. We'll debate that in a little bit. I agree with Brian. They needed to win this match, and I think that's why they came in with both guns blazing at the outset, and they did look really dangerous. I mean, they had several chances that we were a little slow to react to, and I was a little nervous there. I watched the game on replay, and even though I already knew the score by that time, because some guy had seen me out wearing my Liverpool stuff and said, "Oh yeah, great game," and I was like, "Oh, thanks, dude." Anyway,
it wasn't me,
but I know it was. You neither one of you guys are to blame. We looked nervy in the first 10 minutes. Or in the first 5 minutes or so, and until we scored the goal, and I thought we calmed down a little bit, but they were still really intense. They meaning City.
All right, so let's get there, guys. So City players are appealing for a handball in Liverpool's box. Meanwhile, Liverpool are attacking. The ball falls to one of our best players of late, Fabinho. We've felt for a while now that a Fab shot would go in, and this was the day. He puts his laces through it and beats Bravo 1-0 Redmond. Before we start talking about the handball, anything you want to talk about with the goal? I mean, anything that pops up, you want to say how great of a goal it was. City fell asleep because they were appealing. I mean, whatever. It's up to you, and Jim, you get to go first this time.
I think it was a combination of all three of those things. One of I think the thing that most directly contributed to the goal was not just City kind of whining and losing their composure about the handball, but I think the sequence when Mane played the ball in, and it kind of bobbled around in the box a bit, and it fell to Gundogan, and he played the ball. I mean, it's like he laid it off for Fabinho because his clearance was horrible. He just rolled it on the ground, and Fabinho had all the time in the world to strike that ball. There was nobody within 10 yards of him.
Yeah, no one there.
And that was just an amazing strike. What can you say? I mean, that is going to be a goal that Liverpool fans will remember for a long time. It's just beautiful.
Bryan, anything else to add?
I was going to talk about the clearance. I'm glad Jim did. I mean, he just described it perfectly. It was an awful clearance. I mean, you got to put your foot through that ball. I mean, a lot of our listeners have kids that play. Show them that if they're ever, thinking about playing in defense or midfield, whatever. You've got to put your foot through that ball. You have to put some height on it. I mean, and he just doesn't. I mean, it was terrible. So, good ball from Virgil to clean the mess up out to Robbo, who plays it up the wing to Mane. Perfect ball from Robbo up to Mane. He had all kinds of space. It wasn't a terribly difficult ball to play, but Mane was able to take off running, and good run by Bobby into a dangerous area, and Mane puts it in, and Salah's attacking it, and just crappy clearance. I mean, Fabinho had so much time. He kind of settles that ball with the bottom of his boot and kind of rolls it forward instead of a traditional trap. Or
it was almost the setup of that ball by him was almost nonchalant. I mean, I watched it several times, and it's just like it's almost in slow motion. It's like he's surprised that he has so much time and space to shoot that ball.
Yeah, I mean if you think about it, it's like when you're out at the fields and you're just messing around and you're like, okay, I'm going to set myself up. I'll just give myself a little flick with my right foot, and then I have my stride length, ready to go and fire one in. And I mean, that's exactly what it was.
It was a bit like a warm-up shot, wasn't it?
It was. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, a little bit. Just kind of flick it and then rip it. So, and how about the entire crowd? I mean, there was 30,000 people screaming "shoot."
I think you're underestimating it. Probably about 55,000.
What's that?
Probably 55,000.
They weren't all yelling "shoot," no. But a good portion of the crowd was. Good portion of the Liverpool supporters were thinking, "Hell, just have a go at this." So,
I think this also illustrates how much City misses Aymeric Laporte, because I think if he had played in this match, I think we still probably would have won. But I think City's had a rough time with the defending, especially with what's the guy's name? Angelino. Boy, was he bad. I mean, I don't want to focus too much on. Well, maybe I do want to focus a little bit on trashing City in this match, but I just thought their defending was pretty weak through a number of stages of the match. Heck,
they left Otamendi on the bench. He's not a very good center back, and they had one of their center defensive mids play center back. Yeah. So,
yep,
one of their best players, one of the previously best players on their team. Anyway, so let's get back to it. Let's go ahead and talk about it. I'm so tired of talking about VAR every week, but it is what it is. So the ball hits Trent's arm. We're not going to deny it. Then it hits his thigh before he passes it out. So, Bryan, I know you've got a few things to say on this, but before
I do?
Oh yeah, probably.
Okay.
So was it a pen? Was it a pen?
Just a-
Should it have been a pen for City or not?
Well,
Brian Windle, you have something to
first
say.
of all, VAR worked perfect. VAR works perfectly here.
Okay.
The official makes a call immediately. VAR looks at it and then makes a decision. So by the way, VAR is supposed to work and the way the rules are interpreted in this league and the use of VAR in this league, VAR worked perfectly.
Because Mike Dean was right there. I mean, I vividly see him
Right there.
running over right there, waving it off, saying no, no, no.
Mike Dean's closer to that play than any of us are to our wives right now. And I don't even know where you guys are at, but I feel safe in saying that I'm right about that.
What? Yeah. Yes.
Jen's probably 30 feet away. She's, Joe's locked in the closet somewhere.
Yep.
So, yeah. But to answer your question, is it a pen or not? I've been very interested in this particular call and how it went down, and not so much the City fans whining about it, but actual pundits looking at it, referees weighing in, Clattenburg weighing in, writers that I like and respect and enjoy reading about, other podcasts I listen to that are well known the world over, and listening to what they're saying. It's very interesting because the ball strikes what's his face's hand first.
Bernardo Silva.
Silva. I
Silva.
thought it was Silva.
Yeah.
I didn't want to get that wrong. So strikes Silva's arm first, and that's not a handball because first of all, it's a good tackle by Lovren, and that sends that ball up into Silva's hand, and there's no way he can get out of the way. That's not a handball by any stretch.
And his hand was in his natural silhouette. But it was also in his natural silhouette. That's the argument.
Well, yes. Well, for Silva?
Yeah, that's why they're saying it wouldn't have been considered a handball.
No, it wouldn't be even if he had his hand up in the air because he's, a foot and a half away from where the tackle comes from. Now, I'm not, way up in the air is crazy. I'm exaggerating there, but the ball flies across and of course hits Trent. I've seen it measured that Trent was more than 8 yards away from Silva when Silva handled and sent the ball towards Trent. So by that stretch or by that interpretation, I would not have been mad if that was called a handball on Trent and a penalty.
No,
but you can't say that. I don't like the people are talking about Trent not being in natural position when he's playing that ball. He's in a perfectly natural position, if you ask me. If you look at a still shot, and I know still shots aren't always the best way to analyze things, but the moment that it's striking his hand, this picture's out there. It's been put on Twitter 8 million times by now, and 7,900,000 times by bitchy City fans. But Trent's arm is in the same position that Aguero's in. It's the same position that Virgil's in. I mean, he's just like everybody else who's moving their balance and their moving direction and their adjusting their body, etc. Everybody's natural as it can be, but he is 8.5 yards away from Silva when the ball flies across and hits him. So I see how it wasn't called a penalty, and I think the reason it wasn't called a penalty is because Oliver's position is close, but he's in. I'm trying to think of the right angle here. He's at a 90-degree angle to Trent's hand. So in other words, if Trent would just put his right arm straight out towards Oliver, it's kind of pointing right at him, right? So if he had the linesman view where you could see the separation between the arm and the body, or if he was on the far post kind of looking back and he can see that separation from the arm and the body, or even in the D where he can see that a little bit better, he might give that call, but he can't see where he's looking. He's, in other words, Trent's hand or arm is directly in between his line of sight and Trent's right side, so to speak. So he can't really see exactly how far away it is. And I think that's one of the reasons why he waves it off immediately. And I think we were a little bit lucky. I can see why it wasn't called a penalty. I can see why some people are upset. And I can also see why VAR didn't overrule it because he was so demonstrative with his initial call. Hell no, that's not a penalty. No, play on. And, Aguero's still bitching about it. And I wonder if he's actually started to play yet. Because he took him 0.2 of a second. I can't believe he stopped playing. And he rightly got ripped by the announcers. Like, what's he doing stopping playing? It was
Sterling in the same boat.
Call.
Sterling
so there's my very short answer, Joe.
No, Brian,
yes,
that's
a penalty
exactly
and no penalty.
That was exactly what I was looking for. I was going to come back then and say, unbiased. Try to be unbiased as we can. How do you view it? And you already accomplished that. Jim, what are you thinking, man?
For once, thank you. I'm not an unbiased guy. I'll admit that. I mean, I'm not. So, Jim, what do you think?
Well, I'm going to take the lawyer's approach here.
I like it.
Yes, we're biased.
It's good to have you back.
Well, thank you.
Glad you're out of your legal problems.
Thank you, especially since everybody hates lawyers.
I'm sorry, legal issues.
That's right. So here are my thoughts on it. I mean, if you look at the laws of the game, a handball has to involve a deliberate act of the player in making contact with the ball, either with the hand or the arm. That's what the laws of the game say. And this is something I've been talking with my students over the past week. To determine that, the laws of the game set forth a series of factors. And these are just guidelines. They're not mandatory things that have to be met. So you have to consider the movement of the hand towards the ball, not the ball towards the hand. The distance between the opponent and the ball. Whether the movement of the ball toward the player is maybe unexpected. And the other factor that's considered is that the position of the player's hand doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be an offense. So trying to divine whether the handball is deliberate is a difficult thing. So I think what Mike Dean was doing was, with his viewpoint, he's applying those factors in that very, very instantaneous moment, and having to make that judgment call, and that is a very difficult thing to do. So I think that, and I'm going to agree with Bryan here, I wouldn't have been surprised to see that called as a handball based on the position of Trent's arm. You could argue that it looked like he was moving his arm out from his body to try to block the ball. You could also argue the opposite conclusion, that the ball was coming at him quickly enough that he would, and his arm was in a natural position that he just couldn't get out of the way. And I think that's why also the VAR upheld the play. It's got to be a clear and obvious error. When you're talking about deciding whether a handball is deliberate or not, I think it's difficult for the VAR referee to say that the referee on the field's error was clear and obvious. So that's my lawyerly treatise on the application of the handball rule and VAR's review of it in the Premier League.
See, I thought, I'm looking this up because I happen to think that I thought they took that out of it. Took out that it had to be deliberate. Yeah. I thought they
definitely did for an attacker handling a ball with a goal scoring chance is created. That's out.
Yes.
That's probably what it is. Okay.
I want to take this class that Jim teaches the laws of football.
Yeah, I don't think great. I don't think that they took that out technically. It's just the way they've been applying it to the attacking player, but not the defender. You see what I mean? Yeah. I don't think it's they took Law 12, which is where handling the ball is discussed, and decided we're going to excise the word deliberate from the rule. I think that's just the way they've been applying it.
What would have been interesting is sorry, Joe, but
go for it.
What would have been interesting is if Trent was a little bit farther away, or perhaps the handball was a little bit clearer or a little bit more, unnatural with where his hand was, or, the ball didn't get too much fast or whatever. If they give that handball, I don't think VAR overrules it, even though it came off of Silva's hand. However, if Trent completely whiffs on it and he tries to, put his arm out at the last second and pulls it down thinking, no, I'm not going to get a penalty, lets the ball go, and it drops to Sterling, who takes the touch and buries it, the goal's disallowed anyway because it came off a player's hand in the box. Deliberate or not, you can't score a goal or create a goal-scoring chance whether you handle the ball in any fashion whatsoever for an attacking player. That's attacking players only. We talked about that on the pod. I think that would have been even more interesting if that would have happened. But of course, if that does happen, we get to, point and laugh at all the City fans. But we don't go down to the other end, and Fabinho doesn't just send one screaming into the net and feel berserk. So the way it played out was pretty damn good for us.
Yep, 6 minutes gone.
Okay,
go ahead, Jim.
So lawyer here again. Hi guys. I've just got on the Premier League's website and I'm looking at the update to the laws of the game for the 2019-2020 season. With regard to handballs, it says any goal scored or created with the use of the hand or arm will be disallowed this season, even if it is accidental. So that is an express rule change. And then it says if the ball hits a player who's made their body unnaturally bigger, then a foul will be awarded. So I guess you could perhaps apply that to Trent. And then also having the hand arm above shoulder height is rarely a natural position, so that's clearly going to be a handball. Sorry about this. I'm just looking through this for the first time.
It's still gray. Probably,
right.
Looking at the spacing from his body, I still think it's a natural kind of shape to be in, like Bryan had said. I'm with you on that. But that's also why you see a lot of defenders pull their arms down and tuck them behind their backs when they're in the box. Because they don't want to be that much bigger. So, I kind of think we got away with one. I don't think it was a makeup call, but as we've talked kind of before, karma kind of plays things out in the end. So maybe this is one of the karma ones coming back our way. So that's where I stand on it, because we've been hosed quite a few times this season already by VAR. So maybe this time it was time for one to come back.
Maybe if his hand was 14 millimeters in a different direction or whatever the number was.
It was 5.
Then it would have went against us. So.
I'm a bit bitter about that, but yes, 5 millimeters. All right, so 6 minutes gone.
But that wasn't our only goal at the beginning of the match. That was just 1-0, the Fabinho strike, right?
Exactly, and I'm trying to get there, but you keep interrupting me, Bryan.
Yeah, I have done that a couple of times. Well, let's talk about that second goal, because it was a damn good one.
Okay, so, let's the in-between stage, 6 minutes are gone, and Liverpool are up 1-0. Were you like me and initially thought that pre-match that an early goal might take the wins out of City's sails? That's going to be a rhetorical question. You can maybe bring it up later. But I was completely wrong, because City can continue with their attack, and it's very back and forth. However, in the 16th minute, Trent has the ball on the right, switches fields with a perfectly placed pass with his weaker foot, I might mention, to Andy Robertson. After 2 touches, Robbo swings in a cross, which finds Salah's head. 2-0 Liverpool. Salah's run is reviewed and determined to be onside. The goal stands. 2-0 Liverpool. How spectacular was that build up to the goal, Jim?
It was brilliant. In a word, it was brilliant. And the ball in by Robbo was what was really interesting about it is he was able to bend it enough so that Fernandinho couldn't get a foot on it, and then Mo was able to get it on the bounce. Yep. First, when I saw the goal, I thought it was a cross that was all the way in the air to Mo's head, and then the replay shows that it bounces, and I'm just like shaking my head. But I guess trademark Liverpool play with your fullbacks of Trent to Robbo to Mo, just beautiful.
That might have been your 5 millimeters there, the distance from the ball to Fernandinho's foot. Bryan, you want to talk about this goal? I mean, just kind of. Yeah, whatever you want to say.
I love this goal. It's one of my favorite goals of the year. And we've seen better help. You could argue that, Fabinho's was, better is just a pure strike that just brought you to your feet. We've seen plenty of goals with crosses and headers and, that kind of stuff. But this back to the build-up. I mean, Fabinho gets the ball and plays it really quickly out to Trent, which was, a really quick decision. It was just kind of an aimless header forward, and Trent's first touch with his right foot is back towards our own goal because, he's got a defender ahead of him, and he either knows Robbo's out there already, or if he picks him out after he makes the first touch and then plays that ball left-footed like that. I mean, that's just – I watched it with Owen several times. Like, at what point does he figure out he's going to Robbo with this? Owen thinks it's after the first touch, and I'm still trying to wrap my mind around that. If that's true, it probably is. That's just absurd. And Robbo, a brilliant cross. Hell, Salah's header is getting overlooked in this. It's a tough header. He has to take some of the pace off of it. He does kind of put some spin on it, or lets the pace of the ball, and when he takes the pace off of it with his head, he kind of puts a little spin on it, like a left-footed curler off the front right side of his head and into the side netting. It's just beautiful all the way around. This is like I don't know how to describe it. It's like you're playing a video game, and if you hit 3 buttons in succession, like 12 things happen perfectly. It's like Dragon's Lair. Remember the old Dragon's Lair game?
Left,
you push
right,
left, right,
triangle,
just at the right moment, and your guy does like 15 things. That's what this is. It's just so many perfect things in a row, and it was just beautiful. And I'll never forget the shot of Pep sitting on the bench about 2 minutes after that, just sitting there with his arms crossed, like
scowling, seething. It was great.
Seething. Yeah, it's only the 14th minute, and it's 2-0, and they're playing really well, but it's 2-0 after 14 minutes. And we're going absolutely freaking berserk at UJ's. There's 3 City supporters there. It turns out there was one guy we thought was a City supporter who smashed his lighter on the ground. Turns out he was a United supporter. Just pissed at everything. But
oh my God, seriously?
I'll get to it later, perhaps. But we're all going berserk, and I mean, what a great goal, Joe. Any thoughts on our second?
No, not that we haven't already said. I mean, seriously, just ridiculous. And it's one of those things. I think I might be with Owen, Bryan. Because it's one of those things, like I tell Alex, because he's switching to a little bit more one-on-one play this year. And so, you make your move, like make your skill move, and then get your head up and look for your pass. But, one of the
good advice.
Let's be perfectly honest here. And as unbiased as we can be, and probably one of the best people to switch fields or cross a ball in the past 2 generations. So we'll say since 2000 in soccer generations, has to be David Beckham. And people coming out and talking about the way that Trent and Robbo play the ball, especially Trent there in his weaker foot, and placing it perfectly for Robbo was Beckham-esque. And that's some high praise. It really is. I remember watching a World Cup, it might have been a tune-up friendly or whatever, and Beckham just messing around and looking straight forward and passing to somebody on the other sideline, and he does it all in the air. I mean, it just bends perfectly and lands right in the guy's feet. I mean, it's ridiculous. And to talk about how those guys can place a ball anywhere close to how Beckham could is amazing. It really is just, it's amazing.
That's legit praise, and even from a Liverpool supporter, it's warranted. And I agree.
Yeah.
The issue is Beckham, when he was playing on the right, he had to swing it out to Ashley Cole, who was pretty good. When Beckham was playing central or on the left, he had to swing it out to Gary Neville, and there was no chance anything good happening there.
Wasn't Nestelrooy there towards the end of Beckham's United days?
At right back?
No, not right back, but at the club.
Dutch striker.
But at the club. But if he was far enough forward, he could find he was a Dutch striker. I know that, dude.
He was a Dutch striker, and Gary Neville's an English son of a bitch.
Hey, how dare you talk about Mrs. Neville that way? Anyway, I digress.
Mrs. Beckham.
You said Gary Neville is an English son of a bitch.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Okay. So I think I might have gone over my head. All right. So the rest of the first half, I felt it was pretty much back and forth. I meant to look up the possession stats for the first half, but I just settled for the whole match. Whole match was 52% to Manchester City and 48 to Liverpool. So pretty close to shared possession time on the ball. Any other thoughts really from the first half? I think we've done a pretty good job covering the first half so far, but anything else that maybe I might have forgotten about? I just remembered one. Bobby had a really good chance at one and just skies it over the goal. But I thought Bobby was playing pretty well, at least in the first half as well. Anything else from you guys? I'll just open up the floor.
Genie had a chance too. I think, if I remember correctly, that he shot wide. He was pretty close to the 6-yard area, but I can't think of anything else other than those.
Just one other thing, we played exactly how we should have played once we got the lead and got a second.
Yes.
And nothing wrong with giving them the ball and heading into halftime at 2-0. We were thrilled with that. So I think a lot of people have missed that. They really didn't play their regular 4-4-3. They had De Bruyne almost up playing a striker next to Aguero, and kind of Sterling out wide, and they had a weird little formation there for a little while. And I'm not a big kind of stat guy and XG guy, but I do like the average position charts. De Bruyne's average position is for the entire match is next to Aguero. Now, some of that might have been driven by being behind. Naturally he's a little bit more forward and trying to, get back into the game, et cetera. And I get that. But for a lot of the first half, he was up next to Aguero, and they were playing with two up front instead of a 4-3-3. And their midfield really wasn't a flat anything. It was just kind of messy. And our midfield is dynamic, and, Genie can pop up anywhere. Jordan's moving forward and allowing Trent to stay back and deal with Sterling, who, I lost count of the times that we were yelling at Sterling on the TV just because he was complaining, not just yelling every time he touched the ball, because that's fun too. But, he did nothing but whine and bitch the whole match. So he was probably their best player, but, man, a lot of calls didn't go his way, and I think very few of them should have, especially in the first half. But, yeah, it's hard not to like how we played in the first half, especially with what the score was.
Yeah, I'll give you a preview. Raheem Sterling's my non-plug, and we'll get there later. So I'll say my piece then, but you guys can share whenever. So, okay, so second half starts, and it's more of the same early on. A lot of back and forth. People creating chances, people missing chances. Kun Aguero's stinker. He struggles at Anfield. He had quite a few sitters in this match that he should have put in, but he messes them up, and I think that played into part of Sterling's frustration too, which I loved. I could taste your tears. Oh, they're delicious. Anyway, that's a South Park reference that I'm sure Jim got.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I did.
But anyway, Jordan Henderson is just powerful run ruthlessly, finds himself pretty far down on the right-hand side, puts in a beautiful cross back post, and finds a diving Sadio Mane. 3-0 Liverpool. Hey, Pep had said that I'm stealing somebody's joke, I know, but Pep had said that Mane was a diver. Mane dove for that one and put it in. I think that was Aldo pointing it out in match commentary. But yeah,
did he say that on the commentary?
I think he did.
Awesome.
I think he did. Yeah, I love Aldo.
I'll have to go back and try to find that.
Wait, who said that on the match commentary?
John Aldridge.
John Aldridge on the LFC TV and the LFC audio.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, you have to go find that. It's pretty easy to find that stuff. There, the club puts it out on their YouTube channel, and I'll have to go check that out. That's hilarious.
Aldo is my favorite person to accompany Steve in the booth. I love Aldo in there. He, it goes back to like Dan Patrick, when I used to listen to Dan Patrick when he was on ESPN radio, and they would have Homer Call of the Day, or week or whatever, and there was, and so they'd have like the play-by-play guys all over Major League Baseball, and Ron Santo is in there every week, but you just hear him like, yeah, celebrating goals or hits or whatever, and that's what it is with Aldo, and I just love it every single time, every single time. So, how good was this goal, guys? Seriously, Bryan, I'm coming to you first this time. How good was this goal?
Well, the cross was as good a pass as we've seen the entire game, and we already talked about a couple that were absolutely perfect. I mean, it's come from a Trent throw-in to Bobby. He shows for the throw, and they immediately played up the line to Henderson. He just kind of drives toward the end line thinking, okay, I'm just going to advance the ball. And he's going hard, and that's not an easy ball to whip in and to keep it in play even. I'm yelling at the TV at Union Jack, win a corner. That's really what I expected or hoped to do.
Yeah.
And he rips in that ball. It's so perfect. I think Ederson probably does a little bit better with that than Bravo actually did. In fact, a lot of goalkeepers would have. But terrific cross on the far post, far and away from enough from the keeper that Bravo's a little bit stranded. And
out of nowhere.
Their right back, Kyle Walker, their right back is pulls an Aguero and just kind of stops playing for a minute. It's not an easy header. I don't want to take that away from Mane, but. Great run by Hendo into the corner, magnificent cross, and Mane's there all the time at that back post, and great header. Bravo gets a piece of it, 3-0, and one of my favorite things is De Bruyne throwing his arms into the air after that ball goes in. De Bruyne is outside the top of the box, and you can see him on just a regular replay angle, throws his arm into the air. I don't think he's pissed at Bravo at that point because he's not really in the right spot to make that determination. I think he's like, son of a bitch, it's fucking 3-0. and De Bruyne just throws his hands in the air in disgust, probably said, but I don't know any Belgian curse words, but I'm sure he said about 30.
In Flemish?
Yes.
I don't know if he's from Flanders or
said
not.
Something like dark chocolate or something really nasty or white chocolate isn't chocolate or something like that.
Jim, man, what do you want to say about this goal?
I think you have to give I know Bryan's already talked about Henderson's the brilliance of the cross, but I think you have to give Hendo a lot of credit for just blowing. I mean, I don't want to say he blew past two defenders, but he beat two defenders. I think he went past Gundogan and Angelino. I found myself wishing, first of all, I had been at Union Jack, and second of all that Dave Matthews had been there, because I would have yelled, "Look at the donkey
go!" Sorry for you new listeners. Sorry for you new listeners.
We were talking about that. We were talking about that at UJ. That screaming. That one's for Dave, and I think I screamed out, Hendo paints a cross into the far post. And we were screaming. And about maybe 20 or 30 of us or so there got it, and a few of the folks that maybe haven't been around as long, which we love, and there's new people at Union Jack all the time, kind of looked at us like, what are you talking about? We're laughing too hard to even explain it.
That's great. I do think I remember hearing in a post-match commentary that Hendo said, yeah, basically from practice, we know, just put it far post and Mane will be there. And sure enough, out of nowhere, seriously, you don't even see Mane come in until the very end, and he times his run perfectly, and that's the best part about it. Mane times his run perfectly. If you've watched the Inside Anfield, his pants are down halfway to the bottom of his butt, and he doesn't care.
Yes.
He's celebrating. Yes.
Yep.
I was watching it with Alex, and my oldest, he was 8, and he goes, "Dad, his butt's hanging out."
I didn't even notice that. This is Mane's celebration?
Yeah. When you see when they're all celebrating together, it's on the Inside Anfield video.
Okay. I watched that even. I missed it. I'll have to go back and check out Sadio's backside, I guess.
Hey, he must have cleaned up pretty nice after that excellent coffee shit, right, Michael? Sorry, that's a callback. Anyway. All right. So, later on, City pull one back. Kind of looked like a broken play in our defense. I don't know if we definitely could have done better in the defensive with the defense. Some people saying that maybe Alisson Becker could have done better. I'm just going to leave that up for everyone else's interpretation. But there was lots of chippiness throughout the whole match, and then late in the match too, it got a little heated. It felt like a good old fashioned derby, which just from the chippiness alone, and that this means more kind of thing. But another ball happens to hit Trent's hand, and Pep loses it. This is like a all-time classic Pep meltdown if you haven't seen it yet, and appeals to the fourth official and to God, but it doesn't work. So I personally lost a little bit.
Robbie Fowler was not paying attention.
Well, Robbie Fowler was paying attention, but he was probably in Australia. But
yes,
but I lost some respect for Pep in this game. How do you guys feel about Pep's antics?
Go ahead, Jim.
Honestly, I really don't care. I honestly don't care. I mean, he has a tendency. I mean, this isn't anything new. I think because every once in a while, I mean, if you'd paid attention to him at Bayern Munich and paid attention to him at Barcelona, I mean, he had a reputation for occasionally being caustic and sarcastic and whiny. So that's why I don't care, because this is even though I have respect for Pep, I do. As a manager, I think he's generally one of the best managers in the world. But to me, this was just Pep being Pep. So that's what I think. Brian, what are your thoughts?
Well, Joe's description of the meltdown was accurate. The second handball that he's claiming on Trent, the first one he has a legit gripe about, and then we talked about that. The second one's not even close to a handball.
No, not even.
I mean,
close.
The guy is 2 feet away from him and blasts the ball into his hand, which is at his side and not sticking up in the air like we got in the Champions League final last year, and that's completely different. The rules even say in the Premier League's referendum and interpretation of the new rule is that they don't want attackers blasting the ball at a defender's kind of helpless hand. I mean, that and I'm not really paraphrasing that by very much at all. So for him to claim that that's a handball is ridiculous. I think he's frustrated. I think he regrets that moment because it's been shared on social media, 6 million times. But two. I had some fun with it in our official Liverpool supporters account here in Minneapolis had some fun with it. I mean, Reds around the world are having fun with that one. But even after the match, you see him shake the hands with the officials. I know I'm getting ahead of things here, but he was a sarcastic asshole after the match, shaking the referee's hands.
Yeah, and he's gotten suspended and fined for that before, and I'm surprised the FA haven't done anything about it yet, because he has done that shit before and gotten in trouble for it. So,
I don't think they will. Yeah, I don't think they will on this one. I think he was just on the, didn't really put a toe over the line, just went right up to the line and didn't really cross it. And I don't know I don't think he should be suspended for that, but he probably should be suspended for the terrible cardigans he wears. But that's another thing altogether. It's he's a good manager. He didn't behave particularly well in this case. But one thing I want to mention to the listeners before we get past it is this ridiculous block that Lovren had in like the 53rd, 54th minute on Sterling. You remember that one? He slides.
Scoots on his butt.
Oh my gosh. He slides thinking the shot's going to happen. And Raheem takes another touch and kind of fakes him out. And Dejan's scooting along and sticks his leg up again and blocks it. I don't know that I've ever seen a better block than that. That was, it's 3-0 at that point, so it's not like a goal's going to change the game necessarily, but this is City, and they get one back early in the second half with more than half an hour to go. Who knows? But great block by Lovren, and shithousery by Pep.
Complete shithousery. You're exactly right. So Liverpool players and fans are living rent free in Sterling's head. He loses his cool and looks to try and start something with Joe Gomez, who's having nothing of it, pretty much walks away. I think he might give Sterling a bit of a sarcastic push, and of course they're bitching about that too. But anyway, the match ends. Liverpool sit 9 points ahead of now fourth place Manchester City. Leicester and Chelsea sit second and third, both 8 points back. Do you think the result would have been any different if Ederson had been healthy? Bryan.
It's a good question. I don't know that any of the goals were particularly you could point fingers at the goaltender and say, hey, this is why they scored. It was, a howler or anything like that. I do think Ederson would have done better on Hendo's cross for Mane's third, like I mentioned, but I don't know that he comes out and, catches that and launches a counterattack that's devastating when when there's down 2-0, something like that. But
he could, but you don't think he could have been better positioned? He would have been better positioned for, say, Fabinho's shot.
No, I don't think Bravo and Ederson in the goal together could have saved Fabinho's shot.
Fair enough.
People are talking about Bravo doesn't get across and do well on that. There's no way any single, and I guess I'm being silly, two goaltenders can stop just about anything, but I don't know that there's a single goaltender. You know what? Allison wouldn't have stopped that shot. There's my answer.
All right. Jim, what do you think?
Maybe you could argue on the third goal that Bravo could have done better.
But that doesn't change the outcome
I
of the
agree
match.
with Bryan.
Right?
I think yeah. What's that?
But that doesn't change the outcome of the match.
No, it doesn't change the outcome of the match. So,
can I try to be a lawyer? Would that be post hoc ergo propter hoc on the third goal? No.
I don't know because I don't speak Latin.
No, that's after, therefore, because of. That's a legal phrase, isn't it? All right. Sorry.
I have never ever used that phrase in any kind of document I've ever filed or any argument I've ever made. So,
well, you need to work into your next lecture, but go ahead.
I forget what I was saying now since we were talking.
It's all right. You don't think Ederson being healthy would have mattered much.
No.
So
I don't think it would. But as you like to say, Joe, it's a moot point anyway,
right? There we go. Better than a mute point, right, Jim?
Yes.
Oh, my skin's crawling just saying that. Okay. Before we get to man of the match or honorable mentions, any other talking points I might have missed? I'll open it up, whoever.
I just have one, and that's with regard to the chippiness. And I want to say this. I really like the fact that we were really physical with them. In addition to, showing some brilliant attacking football and passing and defending, I think the fact that we were so physical with them is part of the reason we got in their heads. They just didn't keep their composure, I think, through the whole match, no matter how much Pep lauded them post-match about how well his team played. I think we won the mental battle, and that made a difference as well as our physical prowess.
All right, Bryan, anything?
Joe, I've got one. Yeah, and this might put a nice ribbon on the whole match, and I don't want to steal your thunder here, but in case you've got one. But before the match even started, another impeccable moment of silence at Anfield for what they call Remembrance Day in the UK. Just not a moment of silence, a minute silence, just beautifully observed. And I loved it. UJ's went completely silent for the whole minute. Wow, and there was no servers talking. Right. There was not anybody saying, pass me this or that. There wasn't, it stopped. And that was cool. But, watching the match back, the way Anfield observes these minutes silence, I just love it. So I just wanted to mention that, and well done again to everybody at Anfield. I know we've got some listeners over there, so I love it when Anfield does minute silence. They're just good at it, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, so man of the match, come to you first, Bryan.
Well, this is, it was kind of a tough one and an easy one at the same time. I think there's a couple guys you could choose, and it's really hard. I'm lucky to go first here because I think I'm going to pick the most popular choice. It has to be Fabinho, in my opinion. He's a terrific goal that just got us off and running and cleaned up so many balls in the midfield. He's everywhere. He's left, he's right, he's forward, he's back. He's winning headers, he's winning tackles. He's just so good on the ball, makes such good decisions so quick. I'm giving it to just the best Brazilian defensive center mid I've ever seen, and one of the best at that position in the world, our man Fabinho.
Jim?
I'll make it 2 votes for Fabinho. I thought he was brilliant, and I have to say too. I know we're going to talk about honorable mentions, but this is one of the best team efforts I think we've seen all season, and we could have picked a number of different people. So I will defer that to the next point in our outline.
Okay, we got 3 for Fabinho. Again, I thought he was fabulous. It was a great match from him. But I'm going to lead off honorable mentions. Jordan Henderson would have probably gotten my vote just based off of that run. Had he not, if he would have played the full match or closer to it. Also, honorable mention for me, I thought Trent Alexander-Arnold had a great match despite two quote-unquote handballs. So he would have been on my honorable mention list. But I also want to say honorable mention to Sean Cox being there for the match. And you can tell if you watch the Inside Anfield, you can tell how much it meant to the players to see him there. The guys that went up to him afterwards gave him hugs. And it wasn't just the English players either. So fabulous, well done, Reds. Those are my honorable mentions and man of the match. We'll go backwards now. Jim, do you have any honorable mentions?
I would also agree that Hendo gets honorable mention. In fact, I think just the midfield 3. This is probably the best match they played this season in the league. I thought they were brilliant. I also thought Mo had one of his better games of the season, and I would also go with Dejan Lovren. I thought he was very good in this match. I don't know that I would have picked him as man of the match, but I thought he was solid. I mean, it speaks volumes about him that he can come in a game of this magnitude and play as well as he did. So those are my honorable mentions. What about you, Bryan?
Wait, hold on, Jim. I mean, I tell you, going back to Lovren doing the butt scoot like he's a dog with worms. That's great. Yep. There's our pod title, I think. Lovren has butt worms.
The butt scoots.
Lovren butt scoots.
Okay.
No, I think we'll come up with something else. Bryan, honorable mention. Sorry, man.
A great chat by Jim on Lovren. He's not in the man of the match discussion, but he played well. And, a lot of clearances, a lot of headers, won that tackle, as we mentioned earlier, that caused the handball to the other handball to the Fabinho strike. And the great block. I mean, I liked the good shout there. Trent obviously is another good shout. Sterling was dangerous, so it's kind of hard to say that Trent had a great match, and there was a couple of fouls that or non-calls that kind of went our way that Trent was involved in. But he's just so good, just distributing the ball and maybe the best passing right back I've ever seen. And the guy's 21 or whatever. I mean, it's just I don't even understand how that can be. It's just ridiculous. But an unusual man of the match, if you'll allow it, is I'm going to give one to Klopp, or at least give him a shout out. Great subs at a great time and helped us kind of redo our shape and handle things that they were trying to do. And so just to mention the Klopp for a good use of the subs and the right players at the right time, because I thought he really did that well and helped us hold on. So all in all, well done. 3 points to the Reds.
3 points to the Reds is a great way to end this section, but we're moving on to the fallout from the match. City complaining, their fans still complaining, and their tears are delicious. I already used that joke, but I don't care. So this past week, last week, we started seeing some weird things. Apparently, Raheem Sterling attacked Joe Gomez in England camp. Gareth Southgate decides to either not play Raheem Sterling or send him home. But Joe Gomez decides to be the bigger man, literally and figuratively, and talks him into him being Southgate into allowing Sterling to stay. However, then in the match against Montenegro, Joe Gomez comes on late in the match and gets promptly booed by the English contingent. So, guys, you have any idea why Joe Gomez was booed?
I'll say because the vast majority of England doesn't like Liverpool, not necessarily just as a team, and that's part of it, but also as a city. And I'm not speaking on any expertise whatsoever there. It's just what I've read and what I've heard from people like Redman and I'm not going back to Thatcher days and things like that, although there was some real dislike of that particular regime from Merseyside, and so maybe people can look into that if they want to, but generally speaking, it's a pretty common thing for an Englishman in general to not be very fond of Merseyside. I think that has something to do with it, but I could be wrong.
Well, yeah, but they didn't boo Ox when he scored. I never heard them boo Steven Gerrard. Steven Gerrard more Scouse than Joe Gomez is. I just
certainly, but there was a lot of talk of Gerrard and Frank Lampard can't play together, so they better do something about it.
Yeah, but that was because of Frank Lampard.
Or maybe it was because of Gerrard, depending on if you're from London or not.
Frank Lampard's too one-dimensional. I mean, seriously, he only had one thing. Steven Gerrard, so he had to play out of position so that they could play Frank. Whatever.
That's fair.
We'll get out of that at some point in time. But anyway, yeah, boo Joe Gomez. I'm with you, Brian. I think it's just because they hate us. Seriously, they hate the fact that Liverpool's back. They hate the fact that Liverpool beat Manchester City. I have no idea why. Probably because we're the only team that's beat the typical the other top 7 teams so far this season. And everyone hates us. So if the game was played at Wembley, we made Arsenal look bad. We made Tottenham Hotspur look bad. And they probably, and because there's a lot of plastic fans in London. Oh, we made Chelsea look kind of bad too. So, hey, there it is. But you know what? Don't care. Really don't care. They can boo why. I just think it's completely ludicrous and they look like complete idiots. And that kind of blew up in everyone's face. Sterling even came out and told them that they were being stupid. Brian, I posted a comment. I kind of stand by it. If I'm Jordan Henderson, and I see them booing one of my boys, one of my teammates, I take it personally. I take it as it's a Liverpool thing. And I rally up the other Liverpool players and say, fuck this, let's head home. I mean, Brian, I think you disagreed with me on that. But that's that's the way I see it.
Well, I think that's absurd for a national team player who is not being applauded by a section of national team supporters to then encourage 3, 4, 5 players to go home, captain or not, or Henderson isn't a Scouser. I don't know. I think that's a bad career move for a player to think about doing that, much less suggest it. I mean, but it wasn't even behind. I guess it was behind closed doors. Sorry, but now it's known that the entire the entire English team unanimously voted to get Sterling the hell out of there for a game.
Yeah. Yep.
So that's all the support that Henderson needs to hear. I don't think he gives a shit about 5,000, 10,000, 30,000 English supporters booing Joe Gomez in the moment. It was not a good thing to have happen, and I think it's more indicative of why England doesn't do well in major tournaments. Their semifinal appearance was an aberration this last World Cup. This is why they don't do well in tournaments. The rivalries between club players are enormous, and they've yet to find a manager that can overcome that. And their supporters can't handle it either. And it's unfortunate because they're a great soccer nation, but they can't handle it. But I don't think players should go home because of it. I understand it's not fun to watch, and Hendo and Gomez are pissed about it, and Trent should be pissed about it, and a few other guys. But I don't think it's a reason to go home.
Brian, you brought up a good point about how clubs, how they hold that club animosity, and I've been thinking that for a while. I mean, back when Germany was fabulous, and like 2/3 of the team plays for Bayern Munich, so I mean they already have that chemistry, and that's part of the reason why I think Jurgen Löw had such an easy job there for at least 2 World Cup cycles, because 2/3 of the players played for Munich. But anyway, I digress. Anyway, Joe Gomez ends up going home with a knee injury from practice, not a face injury. And we are down to 2 fit center backs. But apparently, Gomez is not going to be healthy to play. Other late news from internationals. Let's see. Andy Robertson didn't go because he's still battling an injury. I don't know if Mohamed Salah went and then came back. Because he had to get checked out by the Egyptian FA, but also Virgil van Dijk left the Netherlands for personal reasons. So some speculation going around about what that could be. I don't know if we'll ever hear, and if it's personal reasons, it pretty much isn't our business anyways. So things are kind of looking a little differently right now. So looking forward, man, I just want to be very, very clear here, and this is the official stance from the podcast. We're not having any talk about it being Liverpool's year. It's November. We're going to
win.
We were 7 up on City last year in January. There's way too much of this season left. A lot of games in December alone. So that being said, Crystal Palace on the weekend currently sits 12th on 15 points. And this leads into a perfect example of what we always say: don't look at the table until Christmas, because 3 points separate 5th place Sheffield United and 15th place Everton. Plus Zaha really hasn't gotten going much this season. We don't know about Robbo or Mo, and Joe Gomez probably, if needed, could go. So, what are you guys thinking about the match? Jim, I'm going to come to you first.
Well, we're playing at Selhurst Park, and that's always difficult. Every time I think about us playing away at Crystal Palace, I think about that awful night in May in 2014 when we were 3-0 up on Palace and they came back. It makes me wake up in a cold sweat at night. But be that as it may, I think it's going to be a tough match. I have not been paying enough attention to Palace to really make a super educated prediction on what's going to happen with this match. I do know that I think they've lost their last 2 matches, if I'm not mistaken.
They have.
Who did they play? They lost to.
They've been having a rough go. I mean, they win some, lose some, draw some. Against, did they?
Yeah, they lost to Leicester 2-0. Before that, they drew Arsenal. They lost to Chelsea 2-0. They lost to Leicester 2-0. Before that, they drew Arsenal 2-2. Before that, they lost to City 2-0. So quite a rough stretch for them. City, Arsenal, Leicester, Chelsea, and us. Good Lord.
Yeah, but they played all the top 4 teams so far. Well, 3 of the top 4 teams. After this weekend, they'll played all the top 4 teams.
Yeah, they've also played 23rd place Manchester United and beat them 2-1.
So there you go.
that was back in August. So
not 23rd place. I mean, they're in that mix between 5th and 15th. So anyway, so what are you thinking, Jim? Did you already say? Sorry, win, lose, draw. What are you thinking?
I think it's going to be a tough match. I'm going to go with 2-1. Or I guess I should say 1-2 to Liverpool.
All right, Brian, what are you thinking, man?
1-2 win. I like it. Since I said advertisement, you can say 1-2 win to Liverpool. I like it.
Liverpool.
I used to love it when we come back off from international breaks and we come out firing, but we haven't done that in a long, long time. So I don't want to say that this game worries me because I think we'll win it, but I don't think it's going to be, a 3-0 comfortable or – you give up one late and you win 3-1 or something like that. I think it's going to be a kind of a cagey affair, as they say. It's going to be a bit ragged at times. It is at Selhurst Park. They generally have a pretty good atmosphere and a good crowd. It's hard not to like Palace. I mean, they certainly don't do anything that makes anybody mad or pisses any Liverpool supporters off. A bar for that game that you mentioned that I'm not going to talk about because it's like Voldemort. We can't really talk about it, but I think we'll win. I think it'll be a 2-0 or maybe a 2-1. but not really comfortable. And like it's not an easy 2-1 or an easy 2-0 if that makes any sense. But we'll win, and I'll just want to mention as well, especially for our listeners here in the States, this match is pegged. So if you don't have NBC Gold, you need to go to your local pub to watch it, unless you have a bunch of illegal streaming opportunities like Joe has. He's good at that. So reach out to Joe with the contact information at the end of the pod here.
Not for live ones, and a lot of stuff's been disappearing lately. So,
well, you're still good at it. I don't ever really mess around with that at all, but this is an NBC Gold match, and we have to have 4 matches on the NBC Gold format like every other team does, and us away to Selhurst Park right after an international break is probably not a bad pick for NBC Gold. So I'll miss it at UJ's. I'll be up in South Bend freezing my ass off and sneaking in cinnamon vodka to mix into various things that I buy at the concessions.
All right. I'm gonna go. I'm kind of on your side, Brian. I don't think it's gonna be an easy cakewalk in the park, especially coming back from international breaks. Especially when we have 3 of our best players in Brazil or wherever they have Brazil at right now. That flight always pisses me off. But it is part of the beast when you have good players that play that are from Brazil. So it's kind of a trade-off, I guess. But the good news is that this is the last international break until March. So we've got a lot of football in between then, and everything hopefully will go this way. So we all believe that, just to say it up, that it will be a victory at Selhurst Park for Liverpool, and it will be rather close. Probably closer than it should be. So, okay, guys. Hey, so next match is next Wednesday, and that is Napoli when they come to visit Anfield the day before Thanksgiving here in the United States. So we expect to be back before that match. So we'll preview that match then, as well as any Thanksgiving matches. Okay, so let's start wrapping it up. Plugs, non-plugs. Jim, it's been a minute since you've been on, so I'm letting you set us an example for plugs and non-plugs tonight.
Thanks for putting a lot of pressure on me. Now I'm very, very anxious, Joe, and I don't know if I'll come back again.
You can non-plug me for my bad Latin reference that has no legal standing whatsoever. That would be fine, Jim. Go ahead.
Hey, I can speak Latin. Quid pro quo.
Ad hoc post.
Well, it actually is Latin, but I guess there's no legal reference to it whatsoever.
It is Latin. I could rattle off some Latin legal terms for you here, but I won't make our listeners suffer any more than they already have.
Jim, what about quid pro quo?
Quid pro quo. I wish
formation. That's a formation that means 4 at the back. I don't know what a pro midfield is.
Quid. No, it means that the front 3 are composed of quid. In other words, British pounds, and then
they're professionals. The midfield are all professionally played.
They're professional, and the quo is, I don't know how to make a joke out of that, so I'm going to just punt on that. Anyway, so plugs. I'm going to plug my wife because she's here making faces at me, trying to make me laugh while I'm speaking on this podcast. She's a wonderful human being because of that. I love her anyway. No, my plug tonight is going to be The Mandalorian. Even though I'm not quite sure how I feel about the show yet, I do have to say, and this is all I'm going to say, I'm not going to spoil. No, I'm not going to. I'll just say that they have created the cutest character in Star Wars history. Right, Joe?
Oh, yeah.
Princess Leia?
I mean, hands down. Hands down, if you want to get people, convert people into Star Wars fans, just tell them about this character. And non-plugs. So my non-plug is going to be Pep Stupid Cargo Pants.
All right, Brian, plugs, non-plugs.
I even made a meme about.
Even made a what? You made a meme about them? I want to hear them.
The
cargo pants.
So the meme about
the screaming lady,
lady screaming. No, the lady screaming at the cat meme now, don't you?
Yes.
That everybody's using.
Sure, sure.
So I made a lady screaming at the cat meme where the lady's screaming 2 handballs, and the cat's reply is, "Your cargo pants are stupid."
Yes. I saw it. I like it.
All right, Bryan, plugs, non-plugs.
Hey, this might be my first ever short and sweet plug non-plug, Joe. I've been working on it. I've been practicing. So my non-plug is to one specific city supporter that goes to Union Jack and watches the match, and they're losing either 2-0 or 3-0 at that point. I don't even remember. And he starts yelling at us and giving us crap. And I don't back down at all. And I kind of start giving the guy some shit back. And he starts talking about dead Liverpool supporters. So non-plug to this idiot for even just bringing that up. And my plug is to my fellow Liverpool supporters that are sitting around me who realize that this guy really has me pissed off. And I'm not from Liverpool. I have no connection. I can't imagine what being from Liverpool and hearing someone say that is like. But it pissed me off. I went back at the guy, and some of my very good friends that I watch matches with all the time kind of said, "Hey, Bryan, let it go. And they were helping me out in that situation. And my plug is to those folks that were doing that because I appreciated it.
All right.
And I needed it.
All right. Okay. So, my plug is going to be for Washington Township Schools and all the other school corporations in Indiana who will be closed tomorrow to allow their teachers to go down to the State House and for Red for Education Day. I feel that's very important. I feel that that teachers are very underappreciated, especially in this state. There is a statewide teacher shortage. The college university I went to when I was there, heck, my grandmother was an education student there back when she was in college. And there were a lot of education majors when I went there as well. So I have quite a few friends that are teachers. However, the numbers have been down, even in kids that are coming to school to be teachers. Probably because they take one look at the pay and see all the stress that goes along with it, especially that the state puts on them, and decide, nah, not for me. So, I think there are a lot of different things that can happen with this. I know we tend to not go political with this podcast, but I feel this is very important and something that needs to be discussed, and really should be examined by the State House. So hopefully they pack the State House. It's going to be bright and red for education tomorrow. So, yeah, my heart goes out to them, and yeah, we can take care of our kids for one day, so you guys can go do something that's way more important than no, excuse me. Let me put that is very important. I'm not saying it's way more important, but it's important. My non-plug goes to Raheem Sterling. His bitching, whining, temper tantrum throwing, then getting in Joe Gomez's face and scratching him at international duty. Man, just when everybody starts to, I was talking to some guys from England, not Manchester City fans, but he has the potential to be such a great player and have a good attitude on things, but then he goes and does stupid shit like this. I mean, completely acting like a fool in this match because things didn't go his way. Another example is, he has this. No, I'm not going to go there. But yeah, he just does stupid shit, and it doesn't help his cause at all. So anyway, it is what it is. Those are my plugs, non-plugs. So I want to remind you to tune in later this week for our special guest podcast. I want to thank you again to any of our new listeners, and I want to thank you all of our old time listeners. This might be your 97th episode that you've listened to, and for that we truly appreciate every single one of you, wherever you fit on that spectrum, 1 to 97. If you do like what we do here, please take some time and tell your friends. Say, hey, you should check out this Liverpool podcast. They do things a little bit differently. Yes, they are Americans, but they tend to know what they're talking about. So give us a shout. We always appreciate it. Also, if you do like what we do, please hit that subscribe button on your favorite podcasting app. That way it'll put us right there and and you'll automatically download when we put out a new episode. You won't miss one. I'm going to put the contact information in the description of the podcast. And that being said, this is Joe Dilling signing off for episode 97 of the Indie Reds podcast. You'll never walk alone.